Good evening, everyone. This is our fourth day of budget workshop. This is Thursday, March 18th. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And welcome. As I said, fourth day of council and town workshop in regards to the budget. So far, we're moving, actually, I should say so far, we're moving along wonderfully. It's always worth saying that getting a budget that is efficient and lean to start with makes this council's jobs immensely easier. So thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thank you, Julie. Thank you all the department heads for their efforts and energies to that. And before we start on our first item that is presented here, 801, I'm going to ask Julie, you have a couple of things in front of you. One in particular is the revenue projections. Julie, if you could speak to that before we start on everything else.
Yes, so in front of you, you will have a revenue replacement sheet. And the reason for the change is because I was reviewing our revenue expenditure reports and saw that we had received library construction aid, which typically is it's about $300,000, and it gets applied to our debt recovery revenue line item. It was not budgeted for last year. I think it was just an oversight. There are a lot of moving parts to the Bristol budget, so that part of the formula had carried forward into this year, and so I realized that I was only counting the Colt portion of our debt recovery revenue. So I was able to add $292,294, which represents that portion of the library construction aid that comes to the town. And it is offset through the fund balance appropriation. So we were able to reduce that from $1 million to $707,706. Bit of good news for today.
No, that's a tremendous amount of good news. So less rainy day fund that we're using to make sure that we keep the tax rate down is outstanding. So a couple of other things before we get going to the regular agenda is the treasurer, Julie, had reached out to, I'm going to take my mask down. Oh, on a housekeeping thing, while you're speaking, I know we talk about this every evening. It's okay. In fact, it's actually preferable that you take your mask down while you're speaking and then just put it up afterwards. It helps everybody focus on who's speaking and actually know who is. In talking with Julie and subsequently the clerk in regards to how the budget conversation is working here, I'm going to back up and say the way the schedule worked this year, joint finance is after our provisionary vote for the budget. Our provisionary vote is, vote is on next week, next Wednesday, which is a normal council meeting. It's where it usually happens, and it is. But because of a change in the Joint Finance Committee schedule, we're voting on the provisional budget before Joint Finance. So we're going to add an extra meeting the Friday after Joint Finance, which would be Friday, and we want to do this in the morning. The reason why the morning, and trust me, I know all of us are busy. We would do this through Zoom, of course. We wouldn't meet here. We want to add an extra meeting in case there is an adjustment to Bristol's portion of the budget at JFC. So in this budget is a 2% increase to the school system. If Joint Finance Committee decided to go a different direction, and obviously we're Joint Finance, we're a portion of it. If we decide to go a different direction while we're there, then we need to make adjustments in the provisional budget. Why the morning? So we can advertise it correctly and make sure that it can be advertised with the corrections to it. So if everyone is okay, we may not need this meeting. And if we don't need to have it. The clerk will cancel it. Just as we were assuming that we're able to go through everything this evening, we'll cancel our Monday meeting. It doesn't require an extra vote. I did reach out to the solicitor today, and I know most of you spoke with him too. So we've covered those bases, but we want to make sure that if there is a change that we have the correct advertising and a meeting set up. I'm thinking 10 a.m. if that's okay with everybody. And I don't know how long it would be if we were to actually have any changes. And I'm guessing a pretty short amount of time, but is everybody okay? I understand this is last minute, but is everybody okay with that? So that would be Friday, next Friday. And let me give you the date on that.
March 26th.
Thank you. So March 26th at 10 a.m. and that would be a Zoom meeting and we will advertise it correctly. If we need it, we'll use it. If we don't, we won't.
We'll have a good idea on Thursday night.
We will. On Thursday evening, we'll know if we need a meeting on Friday morning, right?
Right.
Depending on the outcome of the Joint Finance Committee.
And it's not an issue to cancel it that evening?
Correct. There is no requirement
Oh,
for example, and great point is that when you schedule a meeting, you need 48 hours notice. When you cancel it, you do not.
Right.
So, okay. So is everybody okay with 10 a.m. on, you said the 26th?
March 26th.
Thank you.
I don't have any conflicts. So,
Tony,
Might be having breakfast at that time, but,
you can zoom in.
okay, good.
We'll go, hey, you got something right there, right? Aaron, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. But I just wanted to be clear, the Wednesday of our meeting, before the meeting, we'll have the provisional budget vote.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So we'll vote on Wednesday. If
Okay.
adjustments need to be made,
Then-
that's why we're going to schedule Friday just in case.
All right.
Okay. Mary, you okay with that?
Yep.
Mr. Administrator?
Yeah.
Madam Treasurer?
I
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
All right. Ed, I'll check with you. I know you not have to be there, but you're there.
Can
So,
I add a note about this sheet that's in front of the council?
thank you. So why don't we address that? Actually, we're on the subject. Why don't you do it right now?
Along with the revenue changes I've had, I provided a spreadsheet for you that the second page of it is actually from the school department. That says the impact to Bristol and Warren based on the proration formula. This is a different format than we are used to seeing, and it's a little bit complicated. They've separated out the debt from the operation. So the cover sheet is I prepared so that you could see that if the JFC votes for the school department to have a 2% increase, how that translates when you factor in the enrollments to Bristol is actually $148,000 increase, $148,114 increase. Versus when we talk about town administrators recommended 2% increase. This was new information for me, so I provided the reason for the 4%, 3%, 1 million, 2%, 1%, 0 is that is what the school department provided to us. So I didn't go outside of their parameters, although, and I'm not sure, given what I have, that I can, but I'm happy. I did reach out to their finance person who prepared this, and if the council would like to see some other numbers, I can probably work with her to get some more.
I think it's also important that we translate these numbers to how we would normally share them. So I'm happy to reference this. I just want to make sure that we continue with our provisional budget as we normally would and convey that. So we can convey, I would call it Portuguese to English and English to Portuguese, right?
Yes,
So,
and I think if the council will need a mechanism for translating that at the JFC meeting, I think, and
you've typically given us an Excel spreadsheet that is a
I will
live
do my
one.
best to try and prepare that again, although things are different, a little bit different now than I'm used to. So assuming I can get together with the finance person at the school department, I think we can probably do that together.
Excellent.
I will do my best.
So can I just ask, is this our bottom line, what we're willing to do is gonna stay the same, right?
It's just conveying how the
Right,
numbers are
no, but I mean,
conveyed, but
it's-
agreed.
We're not gonna be changing the,
Well,
are we?
yes, potentially.
Yeah.
I guess not, just to add some more food for thought on that, is that if I don't know the impact to Warren, which is probably a consideration if we do approve that big. I don't know, usually it's exponentially more for them, so it might be worth getting some more information from the school department, and I will certainly just distribute that through an email.
well, I'm okay if it's
I think
slightly,
would be
if it's slightly less, but I don't wanna see us go up and the next thing we know is like 3% or 2.8.
I don't think we could go more. I think that Warren would be so far above the cap. I think it would be really difficult.
I mean, I think.
So Mary, are
Yeah,
you asking,
yeah.
just so I'm clear, are you asking, do these numbers change the way that we're proposing our budget? Is
Yes.
that what you're asking? No.
I guess what I'm saying is,
And you're looking at me funny, so it's okay to give
No,
clarity
it's just,
there.
it's
So,
always a complicated, messy part of our process when we have to go through the JFC churning through
Yes,
the process where we distribute out our numbers translate to different percentages. So That's
So-
why it's,
Right.
Why don't we do this to
We have this amount of
Mary's?
dollars and
Mhm.
it's gonna be this amount or less. It's not gonna be, we're not gonna find ourselves like up here.
So to Mary's exact question, let's make sure that the council and administrator, because that's the representation here, has clarity on what is proposed in this budget and what that means as a motion to the Joint Finance Committee and adjustments accordingly, as you have done in the past. And I hear your apprehension because of lack of conversation that's happened. That's not supposed to be a negative. It just means that we need that conversation to be able to make sure the numbers, we speak the same language,
Yes.
right?
yes.
So we're kind of converting these numbers into school district speak.
Yes, exactly.
So, but we will confirm to Mary's point that the numbers are what we're talking about. Now, if the Joint Finance Committee makes a motion for a different number, that of course
Yeah,
affects it
yeah.
accordingly. But I think Mary's point is clear, is that we've gone down this road based off X. X is 2% in this instance. So we'll make sure that we clearly understand what we're walking in with. If there's an adjustment, we'll talk about it at the Joint Finance. Everybody all right with that?
I just have one
Tim.
question for Julie. So Julie, if I'm looking at the total operation and Bristol Warren breakdown, we would use that line area to make a motion or as guidance to, because they usually ask what the breakout is. Because we've gotten into jams at JFC where they're like reread, what did you
Yes.
mean? Or it was amendment or something. We would focus on that,
I
correct?
will.
Because it looks,
Right,
just so we
and-
give out the
so
right numbers,
the
because
disadvantage to what I'm working with right now is that my spreadsheet that I had prepared that has the, put this number in this box and then you get this number, it doesn't apply in the current format that we've been provided the budget. So I need to make modifications or check in with their finance person to see if it's something that she's prepared to calculate at the JFC. I may be able to modify my spreadsheet to agree with hers, but
Okay.
at this point, it's two different languages, just based on changes at the school department, so.
So-
we used to calculate it on the fly.
I did, yeah, and that was based off of Julie's Excel spreadsheet that I would have, and it is imperative that we have that.
Yes,
So we can feel confident about what is being, what the motion is, and if it is 2%, if it's 1%, if it's 16%, whatever it is, we need to understand what we're clearly what the motion is and what we're committing to.
I would think you could work backwards. I mean, we have a certain dollar figure and whatever that might come out to, 1.932%. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right,
it's
which
not that
is,
it can't be done, it's just that I need a little bit more
Right.
information and working with them to
Right, you need some
understand.
time.
because
Yeah,
they've-
yeah.
They've separated out the debt service and held that static and then had the operations as a moving number, so there's just a few more moving parts than normal, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, we
So
have no
well
doubt
in
that you can figure it
advance.
out.
Okay, great.
we will have information to make an informed decision.
And Julie, this, sorry, this is Aaron Lang. This top part, is this for fiscal year 2022?
the one where Button's going. out,
Okay,
yes.
because I noticed that bottom box is
I
fiscal year
think that was, they
2021.
were probably just referencing last year's numbers is my guess.
Okay, and then if the administrator increase is 590, then
It's
We
the,
will be,
it would
it
be the-
translates to roughly 3.5%.
a 3.5%
according to this.
increase. Okay, so it's well over the recommended or what the JFC asked for.
what the
At
school
this
committee
point,
asked for.
It is.
Yeah, what the
We-
school committee asked for.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
the school committee asked for. it.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're right, Aaron.
yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
what we just did right here. We need to be infinitely clear. And just to be clear, it's not a question of whether or not the numbers are correct. It's conveying the numbers and speaking school district ease
Yeah.
versus town ease. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I think we're all very, very sure that we want to make sure that we're very, very sure.
Well, and it's gonna be important, I think, for people to know that the 2% increase translates to that 3.5%
that?
increase
So-
above and beyond,
So
so.
we'll talk about it,
Yeah.
okay? Well in advance, we'll make sure that that the information is there. Okay. Anything else before we move forward? I know Ed was here early, so I'm giving him a hard time. Julie,
I'm sorry,
are you okay?
I'm good. Yes, thank you.
All right, beautiful. All right, so we're gonna start on our agenda, which is 801, which is Human Services. Ed Carusi. Ed, if you don't mind, so we can hear you. Thank you, sir. Ed, what we've done, and you've done this many times, is ask you to bring our attention anything that you'd like us to take a look at. And if there isn't anything, I'll just open it up to the council for questions.
Nothing that comes to mind, no.
I ask you to be less wordy next time. Thank you. I've known Ed a long time.
I'm not.
Council?
Ed, good to see you. How are things going? I don't really have a lot of questions on your budget because it's basically 0.6%. So it's
It's,
nothing crazy going on there.
no,
But just checking in, how are things?
it's been the past 12 months, the requests for assistance have been much thinner than usual.
Thinner. No kidding.
Much thinner. I would think it would be exactly the opposite.
Right.
But my phone isn't ringing the way it normally rings, and I don't know why that is. I have had discussions this week and in the past, I don't know, month or so with the administrative assistants at the churches and the groups that I work with, and they're all saying the same thing. The only one that's not thinning would be the food pantry. They're up and running and going mad, but I'm not getting requests like I normally do at this time of the year.
Do you believe it might be in part of the, I'll call it flexibility given to the utilities, given
That's
to
part of
the,
it.
yeah.
And if that's the case, then I'm expecting a firestorm. I just don't know when that's going to occur.
Because they still have the moratorium on evictions, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
and at the
yeah,
end
that's
of
the point.
this month, more federal money will be made available through Rhode Island Housing. I forget the website, but I was on a webinar on Tuesday that explained all of that. There's going to be a lot of money available for people that are having trouble meeting their rental obligations. It's not for landlords per se, not for homeowners, but for renters. So that is going to be made available at the 31st, on the 31st of March. And there's a website that will coincide for that. And I haven't gotten a lot of requests for for rental assistance. I will tell you that within the past year, I do get of the requests that I've received, many of them are for assistance with water. And that more so in the last 2 years, I think, than in the past.
And you attribute that?
3% rate hike, 3%, 3%, 3%, 10%, 3%, 3%, 3%. There's nothing.
Well, that was clear. Thank you.
Well, I'm just, this is what I hear from people. At what point does it become too much? I know there's not a lot that we can do about that. But the problem is there. The other question I get a lot, or situation that arises a lot, is actually the cost of rent in this town. I had a couple call me recently. They've been married for 50 years. They've been in their house, they grew up in this town. They've been in their house, in their apartment for almost 50 years. I think she said 45 years or something to that effect. The family that owned the house sold the house. And now a new family has come in and has jacked up the rent so high that they can't afford to stay in town anymore. And they weren't paying an unreasonable rent. But they both live on Social Security now. And I get this more often than not lately. So again, I don't know if there's anything that could be done there, but it's a real problem.
It is, and that's something that I think we've sort of talked about as we've gone through this budget and, in various conversations, and also just, I think we've all been thinking about what we do. I mean, Bristol in a lot of ways is a victim of its own success. And it's very, lots of people coming in that can afford a whole lot more. And what happens to our residents that are elderly, our residents who are hourly wage earners and others. And I think we really have to be creative and try to figure out something. I'm not sure what the answer is either off the top of my head, but it's very concerning. Like, that's a great example of somebody who's lived their whole life here. I'm sure they lived their entire life here. If they've been married for 50 years, lived in that apartment for 45 years, they probably grew up here. Now they're being forced to go somewhere else.
They have moved. They moved out of town. I think she said they went to Warren. I'm not sure. I don't have contact with them anymore. But it's real.
Thank you.
That's real.
But how many cases do you see of that, like on a, it may not come to you, but I mean, that you hear about or that?
I'd say at least a couple of times a year, 3 or 4 times a year, maybe. And other, not necessarily from seniors, but also from just, people younger than that,
Mhm.
that are in the town, that have lived here all their lives. They're moving, they just got a new job, they moved to town, can't afford the rent. Can't afford to rent.
Because I would be guessing that you wouldn't hear a lot from those, like the example of that first couple. I would guess that you wouldn't hear a lot of those people, a lot of that, because they're not apt to be calling you for help.
No,
You know what I mean? So.
not at all.
It really is sad.
What other questions do we have for Ed? Ed, what haven't you gone over, because you've been so wordy, what haven't you gone over that you'd like to go over with us?
The dialer program is still alive and well, but requests for that have been down. Again, I'm not sure what the reason for that was, but I'm planning on publishing a letter or something in the Phoenix next week, just not next week, the following week, announcing that it's still here. So if you need it, let me know and I can get one to you. I don't know if it's because.
Remind everyone what the dialer program is and why they would want it.
It's similar to what you see on TV. I've fallen and I can't get up. It's that kind of a thing. It's a personal emergency response unit. We issue them to anyone that asks for them free of charge. They're welcome to make a donation if they so choose. At this point, there are about 275 out, roughly 275. And anyone is eligible. It's not income dependent or anything like that. That's the gist of it. That's the gist of it.
That was perfect. Thank you.
I think maybe either people don't want people coming into their house, or they haven't, nothing's
Yeah.
really changed. They've been living with somebody else because they don't want to
Exactly.
be
People have
alone.
been home more across the board, whether
Yeah.
it be caretakers
Yeah.
that live with these individuals and so forth. So that's dropped down a little bit. But again, I'm anticipating that this is all going to ramp up again.
Yeah. Of course.
And thanks for coming here. In the meantime, is there anything that we can do to help get the word out about the services that you're offering?
Not that I can think of. I mean, again, I'll be putting something in Phoenix regarding the dialer program, and maybe I can word it such that people are aware of the fact that I'm here for utility assistance, that kind of thing. I have to find a way to word that, but.
Well, to Aaron's point, if there is something and it's 2 months from now and you say, boy, would it be great if we could, please don't hesitate.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I think you could put it on Mr. Administrator's Facebook page too.
I'll speak with him
Thank you, Ed.
about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The dial program, just very
Oh,
quickly.
of course.
The dial program, it is very, very helpful. I know my mother-in-law, though, you have to be cautious. One time she had it on and she leaned, she was washing some dishes, she leaned forward. The next thing is they're knocking on the door. They had responded to the house and she goes, what happened? What's going on? And it was like, okay, he leaned against the thing.
So it works.
I didn't push the button. Well, you did.
Your sync did. Right?
Yes. Does my old friend at 107 and she has one, doesn't she? At the farm there, what's the name of it? She Marslick, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
She has one, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
I think she refuses to use it though.
She's funny, but she's on top of it because if it needs a battery or something like that, she's on the phone with me.
Good.
She's on the
That's
phone with me.
awesome.
Yeah, she still has hers. I don't know if she's ever used it, but she has it.
I don't think so, because, yeah. I don't think she makes as much use of it as she should.
Well, you have to use it. I mean,
Perhaps
that's the thing,
not.
like my mother for a while there had it, she had it on the bed near her, but she didn't have it on her. And then she lost her footing and she was on the floor for like several hours. I said, like, you couldn't reach the, I said, well, you have a dial. She said, well, I didn't want it on my neck at night. So, I mean, you have to wear it, you have to have it on. Now, that doesn't happen anymore, but you know.
I try to encourage people, the same thing. It's not gonna do you any good if it's in the dresser drawer.
Right,
I don't care if even if there is somebody in the house, keep it with you.
right.
Keep it with you. Keep it with you.
Thank you.
But you
ma'am.
know, Ed, can I just, I'm sorry, I just want to say thank you very much for everything that you do for, like you mentioned the battery. I know that, you know, you've gone and done my mother's battery. You're very good about responding to the seniors and helping and making sure that their device is working properly.
My job, and I'm happy to do it. I truly am. I'm happy to do it.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Sit there long enough, we'll come up with other questions,
Yeah.
you know, conversation.
Exactly.
Call me.
Tony, did they have the dishes? Did they
Thank you
have
all.
the dishes?
Thank you.
It was too funny. She said, why are you here? Well, you called us. No, I didn't. Well, you did.
Okay, next on the agenda is 805, which is human resources. I'm going to go from the list in our budget packet, which should coincide with how it was advertised here. But if I miss one, please feel free to point that out if you would. I'll remind, I know that we may have a few people on the call, and Chris has actually confirmed that wanted to share something. I will remind, this council has kind of taken the position from a few years ago that if you've been in front of this council and you've advocated for your group or organization and we're familiar with you, you don't have to do it again. And it doesn't, we don't weigh any less if you're not speaking or if there is no thank you. We understand, we know all of you, at least most of you have been in front of us. We understand the value of your organizations. What I'm going to do on each one, and first is actually Women's Resource Center of Rhode Island. What I'll do for the applicants, for the people who wrote the grants, or applicants, is tell you exactly what was adopted last year and what the administrator has proposed in this budget. So Women's Resource Center of Rhode Island adopted last year was $1,870. This year proposed from the administrator is $1,875. No, that's the $5 has to do with how the numbers are broken down to keep things even. So in essence, it's level funding. So if there is representation from Women's Resource Center of Rhode Island. One moment, the person that would tell me that that's happening just went to the door. Chris, do we have someone from, boy, I can't speak tonight.
We do. We have Lori Ann, so I'm going to promote her so you guys can.
Please do. Lori Ann.
Yes, hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Well, welcome. As you heard from the opening, my opening statements is that you don't need to go through things if you've already gone through them. If there are things in your packet, we've all had the opportunity, and I know we all have read through them. So if there was anything additional that you wanted to add, as I said, don't feel that more words would be more endearing or less endearing. It's unnecessary. We see your value and we appreciate what you do. So if there was anything that you wanted to add to that, you are more than welcome.
Thank you so much. And I do want to thank you for opening this up this evening. The only thing that I think I would like to add, because I know you've heard from the Women's Resource Center multiple times, usually Sharon King is here and she wasn't available tonight. I'd like to introduce myself. So my name is Lori Williams, and I am the law enforcement advocate at the Women's Resource Center. I did want to mention that as law enforcement advocate, I support local police departments, including the Bristol Police Department. And they're an amazing law enforcement group. They're very supportive of our agency, and we do great service together. And I just enjoy Bristol. I enjoy serving the people of Bristol. And if there's any questions you have pertaining to our proposal, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you, Lori. I'll open up to the councilors. Any questions? Lori, thank you for your kind words. Serving the community is something that we believe in too. So we are certainly lockstep in that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Next is B, which is East Bay Center. And Chris, if there is someone, you feel free to bring them forward. I'll take a moment and say that adopted in last year's budget, 2021 was $23,370. This year, the administrator is proposing $25,000 in this budget.
I think that these things.
Did I read that incorrectly?
25, no, you're right.
25, right? And to be clear, I think it's,
I think these are mixed up. I don't think it matters, but I think East Bay Center is under C in our budget, and because Bob Crosley is, and then the other, I mean, the numbers look correct. I'm just saying that I think they're in the wrong. Like in other words, B, East Bay Center is under C. But they're both now part of East Bay Community Action Plan.
Oh, there, no, okay, I get it.
is everybody okay with that? Okay.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So you think they're flip-flopped, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I know, like
Okay.
99.99% sure.
Okay.
They are, Mary is right, they're back, they're in the book
I never-
back.
I always had that little bit of doubt on myself, but
They're in the book backwards, but they're listed correctly.
They're listed, the amounts are listed
correct,
properly,
yeah.
but they're inserted wrong.
Okay. All right, so I'll just reiterate those numbers just so everyone is comfortable with it. East Bay Center, which is line B on our budget, shows last year what was adopted was $23,370. And this year is a town administrator recommendation of $25,000. I can see Mr. Dennis Roy on our Zoom TV. Welcome, Dennis. How are you?
Yes, hi, good evening, members of the council and council administrator, et cetera, town administrator. I just wanted to thank the town and the council for their ongoing support. As everyone knows, it's just about a year now through COVID. Thank goodness for telemedicine. We have about 300 residents in town who receive general outpatient behavioral health services from us. By the way, I'm subbing for Bob Crosley tonight. I couldn't be here.
You're doing a great job, Dennis. You're doing a great job.
Thank you much. We thank you for your ongoing support. I also just wanted to mention that we are working closely with Bristol Prevention Task Force. We have recovery services back in town again. And we're also working with the police department on a safe station approach to provide naloxone and other services if they need to be available. So we're adding new services. We served about 300 residents last year for behavioral health services. And thank you for your support. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So you do an outstanding job, and you are surrounded by people who also do an outstanding job. We have a few more that are going to speak, but you really do. And our relationship with you and your relationship with us is certainly years upon years. Questions from the council?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment to the administrator, and that is to thank him for putting it back to the levels of 2019 to 20. Last year, all the agencies took somewhat of a cut. I had very serious concerns about the mental health piece in particular and about the CAP agency. So as much as I would always hope that there would be more, I am happy to see them back to the prior year's level, the year before last.
Tony?
Just simply to say thank you, Dennis, for the service that the agency provides. It's always, and as you pointed out, it's not just one, but various components, that you provide to the town. So we appreciate all the support.
Thank you so much, members of the council.
Anything else from the council? Thank you, Dennis. Next on the agenda is C, which is East Bay Community Action. Last year, what was adopted was 18,696. And this year, town administrator recommendation is $20,000, which was actually kind of to an earlier point was what we adopted back in 20. And it's probably worth it to say that if you see those varying numbers, we made some adjustments last year because of the challenges of the budget having to do with COVID, before COVID hit, as COVID was hitting, and all of that afterwards. So is there representation from East Bay Community Action? Is there?
I think that's Dennis.
That was Dennis again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he did leave this, I don't know if you saw it. or-
I did,
Yeah,
actually.
You don't have it
I
on
did.
the number of the clients and people from Bristol.
Well, how about if we say thank you again to Dennis?
Oh, there he is.
We can't hear you, sir.
Hope that's
There you
better.
are.
Once again, on behalf of,
You're not going to do it again, are you?
on behalf of the Action Program, thank you, members of the council and town administrator.
Thank you, Dennis.
$1.6 million in services last year from the Community Action Program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Administrator, I just have to comment because I think it brings a smile to everyone's face. This program involves the Moeller Express, which was the Ronald McDonald
Dental.
was looking at, it's a mobile dental unit. Is that correct, Dennis? And that's where
Yes,
some of this
correct.
funding goes. So
Mhm.
you can really see it in action around town during the school year.
Thank
You know,
you.
in at the summer camp, they do go to.
That's
the summer
right.
camp.
That's right. Thank you. Any questions for Dennis? No? Thank you again, Dennis. 2 bites of the apple there, right? So, all right. Next one is Benjamin Church Tenants Association. And what was adopted last year was $374. The administrator felt very, very bold and went up to $375 this year. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I joke. Is there representation from the Benjamin Church Tenants Association? No. Okay. All right. Again, this council does not in any way take that as a negative. You did an application for the grant. You've explained why there's value in your organization. We understand it, and we have history with most. So we do not in any way put that as a negative. Okay, so I'm going to move to E, which is visiting nurse services. Last year, we adopted $5,328. This year is in essence the same, which is $5,330. Is there representation from visiting nurse services? No, okay. Next is F, which is community string. The last year's budget was 0, and I forgot why, but I know previously it was $350, and this year is recommended for $350. Does anybody remember why it was 0? I remember there was something happened.
I think we made some type of in-kind contribution with space at the rental school. So Alan Bernstein said that, you know, he was very grateful and he didn't put the request in last year.
Okay, thank you. I knew there was something. So Chris, do we have community strings on?
Alan is on the call.
State House,
but does not
High
have
Street.
numbers out, though.
I'm going to give him a count of 5 just in case he wanted to raise his hand. He doesn't need to. Certainly, we've already gone through this. I know, I feel like, what's his name? George Allen, right? No, not. Yes, exactly.
He has raised his hand, so he's going to be coming up shortly.
All right, great. We'll give him an opportunity to share. If you can hear some clicking in the background, the newspaper is here. Rich from the newspaper, trying to capture some of the changes that we've made here at Town Hall. This is obviously a hybrid of the hybrid.
Yeah.
Normally, we would be up there and this would be changed, but we wanted to make sure we were safe and 6 feet away from each other. Obviously, that's why all of us have masks on. But he wanted to capture it and they asked if they could be here, and I thought it was wonderful to share with the public. So, any news, Chris?
He's here. Alan, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, we can't see you, but please
Oh,
share your thoughts.
okay. Well, I can certainly press that button as well. There. Okay. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for your past and present support. That was the case that Steve said last year. We were very, we were cognizant of the budgetary difficulties last year, and we had been receiving a lot of support from the city. So I thought at that time I would give back and leave it on the table. This year, again, I thank you for your support, because we do need the support this year. It's been a tough year. We're pretty far in the hole, but we will survive this.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, there you are. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Alan.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Next on our list is G, which is Mount Hope Wrestling, but it is a zero item, both zero in what was adopted last year and also the request. There was no request this year. Going to go to H, which is King Philip Little League. Last year, last year we approved $935. And there's a recommendation this year from town administrator for $950. Is there representation from King Philip? No, it might be Jim Collins. Is that name on there? Okay. All right. So I'm going to move forward. We'll go next to I, which is Franklin Court Tenant Association. I'm assuming there's no association at the end there. We approved last year $374. In essence, the same thing, $375. Is there representation from Franklin Court? Okay. Next is J, which is Bristol Senior.
Citizens Council.
Thank you. It's abbreviated strangely. Citizens Council. Thank you. There was no request this year for them. Am I correct with that? Yes, I am. Okay, so we're going to go to K, which is Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts, last year, we adopted $935. Administrator recommendation of $950. Is there representation of Boy Scouts? Okay, next is L, which is Mosaico. Approved last year, 1309, suggested this year of 1325. Is Mosaico on the call?
See,
See a wonderful small town. They don't say Mosaico. We just happen to know who they are. Isn't that great? So. Hi, Amy.
Hi. Oh, this is, okay, sorry, my camera's all weird. I thought I got booted out for a second. Hi, everyone. So yes, Sense of Pride is happening again this year. It's a little bit different, obviously, with COVID, but hopefully can be a lot more than it was last year. But we're doing most things virtual, and hopefully later in the year, we can do some things in person again.
Excellent.
Thank you for your continued support.
Questions for Amy or comments? No?
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, can I just have them state their name for the record so that way I can put it on
Amy,
there?
could you
I'm sorry.
state your name for the record, please?
Amy Bratsos.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to the clerk's point, I should have been asking that all along. So make sure that we just keep our records clear. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our list is Bristol Art Museum. Last year adopted 467. This year suggested 475. We have representation from Bristol Art Museum. All right. I'll remind people, don't worry, we don't look at that badly. So next is Harbor Lights. Last year 374. This year is 350. Do we have representation from Harbor Lights?
no,
All right. Next is Cornerstone, which is O on our agenda and our budget. Last year was 935. This year 950. Anyone from Cornerstone?
Jessica Goss.
Excellent. So Jessica will be on our screen just in a moment. Jessica, if you could state your name for the record. We don't see you yet, but we're just working on that.
Okay, I think
There you are. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to introduce myself. I'm actually the new director of Cornerstone Adult Day Services. So my name is Jessica Goslin, for the record. I'm also here with our Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for St. Elizabeth Community, Roberta Merkel. I'd like to thank you for your support over the years. And I know, although I'm new, I know there's been a long-standing positive relationship with the town of Bristol. So I just want to thank you. And also just let you know that certainly we've been impacted by the pandemic this year, but Cornerstone is open and we are certainly taking on new participants and are happy to serve the elders of the Bristol community and will continue to do so. So in that vein, we respectfully request your continued support. And also just wanted to let you know we've been participating in weekly testing for our participants, and also last week had our very first vaccination clinic. So very happy to say we were able to vaccinate 20 caregivers and participants at our Bristol site. So once again, thank you so very much for your support and appreciate it. Very nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Jessica. Any comments or questions for Jessica?
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, next is P, which is Samaritans. Last year was 467, this year 500. Do we have representation from Samaritans? No. I'm going to say that we have so many phenomenal organizations. Samaritans is just another example of an outstanding organization. I'm always, and I think we all are, just the way that they ask for so little and give back. And I think it's a great representation of the organizations that are asking for this evening, is that they ask for honestly very little, and the amount that they give back is tremendous. So next is Q, which is Bristol Historic Society, and there was no request this year, so we'll move forward to R, which is Cogshell Farm. Last year was 467. This year proposed 475. We have Cogshell Farm that wanted to speak.
Yep.
All right. I think they're there, but they don't know they're there. We can hear you. We just can't see you yet. Here we go.
Okay, hi.
We can't see you yet,
Diane Vaughn.
Diane, welcome.
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank you once again for the help. And I think everybody thinks they know Cogshell Farm Museum because we've been around since 1973. But in January 2020, we started a partnership with Old Sturbridge Village, which I think some people misunderstand. And I wanted to make sure that folks understood that we are still our own separate 501c3 nonprofit. And we hire Old Sturbridge Village through a management contract to give us a suite of services that means that we don't have to hire a whole lot of extra staff. It's a really win-win situation. And we're opening for the first time this year, this Saturday. So we hope folks are going to come out and see what we have to offer and see what Cogshell Farm looks like coming out of a pandemic.
Excellent.
Are there any questions?
Questions from the council? No. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
As long as we've been doing this, it's still strange to hear your own voice coming back to you. It's a little weird. Next was Eastern RI Conservation District. It is 0 in the past. There was a request, but there was also a 0 recommendation from the administrator, but it is on the list. So I don't know if there's someone from Eastern. No. Okay, so we'll move forward to Meals on Wheels, which is T. Last year, 935. This year, 950. Is there someone from Meals on Wheels? Excellent. And I'll wait for them to come on, then I'll remind them. Rebecca, how do I know? Because your name's on there.
I just connected myself. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. If you could state your name for the record and just share what you wanted to share.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Rebecca Keister. I'm the Director of Development and Public Relations at Meals on Wheels of Rhode Island. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say hi. Our Executive Director, Megan Grady, would love to have said hi herself, but she has another commitment this evening. And so we just wanted to thank you all for your continued support and trust in the vital work we're doing in your community to serve homebound seniors. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for what you do. Council? No, we're all set, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Art Night, Bristol Warren. Last year's approval, 935. This year's recommendation, 950. Chris, what am I going to say? No? Okay, all right. Next, we don't have anybody on. Next is V, Neverland Theater. Last year, $327. This year, recommendation, 350. Anyone from Neverland? Okay. Next is the Rotary, which is W. Last year was $935. This year recommended $950. Representation? No. We're just flying through this, right? So next is X, which is East Bay Food Pantry. Last year, $467. This year, $500. Representation? All right. Y is the Bristol Senior Center. Last year, $154,244. This year, $157,329. We have someone from Senior Center?
Yes, Maria.
Okay. It's a little painful pause in the middles here, huh? Here we go.
I think you got it.
We can hear you and we can't see you yet. And I think we'll see you in a moment. There you are.
Hi, guys. Thank you
Welcome.
so much.
If you could state your name for the record and please share.
Sure. My name is Maria Orsini. I am the director at the Benjamin Church Senior Center. I am here on my right is Vincent Saviano. He's our treasurer. Behind me, I have Maria Doherty, who is our president. I also have Donna Wilson, who is my assistant. We have Liz Hobby, who is our vice president. And we also have Cheryl Imes, who is our secretary. So I just want to have the opportunity to thank you for giving us this opportunity here. I would like to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to present our grant request. Our center serves as a community hub, and although it has been difficult to continue the services that we normally offer on a daily basis, we have recognized and have been able to provide basic human needs such as food, medication, and wellness checks. As stated in our narrative, our main objective was to continue providing resources to our seniors while they were isolated in their homes. Our in-house lunch program became a daily delivery service, including holidays and weekends, servicing many more individuals than normally served, with an increased rate of approximately 75%. Included in these deliveries was Franklin Court Independent Living, Bristol Housing Authority, as well as the homebound seniors within the community. We continue to devise new ideas for the future, knowing that we must establish a new direction to ensure the mental and physical well-being of our vulnerable senior population. Now, I know we probably have individuals on the Zoom, so just a couple of things that I just want to go over with you, and I promise you it won't be long. But as it is on our narrative, our daily meals here at the center, which we deliver, has increased by 75%. As I stated, we had approximately just a little under 10,000 meals that were served. Our foster senior has increased last year of 2020 by 28%. The Meals on Wheels increased by 30%. We went from 8,500 to approximately 11,159. We were fortunate enough that we had Hope in Maine that worked with us, and in a 22-week period, we delivered approximately 2,500 meals with a value of just under $20,000. We were also, Blount donated 200 cases of bagged soup also to us. We share hope. We had here, we delivered groceries, 275 bags, produce, 275 bags also there. We donated 330 pounds to the East Bay Food Pantry. Roger Williams University also supplied us with soup, especially at the beginning of COVID, that we served approximately 1,000 individuals. The Bristol Health Equity Zone did a drive for us on soup cans. They also collected 364 cans. We had Levi's oil that I need to up that when I sent in my grant, I had 200 gallons, but he's actually donated 300 gallons of oil that was much needed for our community. We have approximately community support throughout this whole COVID. We couldn't have done it without our community. In food alone, we are looking at approximately $55,000, and masks between HES and other agencies have donated to us. We're looking at approximately 2,000. We want to thank our local students that attend our local schools. We want to also thank Roger Williams University, to churches, individuals, nursing homes, local businesses and partners who continue still making inspirational materials that we can put in our daily lunches and our special packages that we do at least twice a month to Franklin Court Independent Living, Bristol Housing Authority, and our community members also. And the biggest thing that we've been working with the state is our homebound to be vaccinated. So that was a big accomplishment to us. And we also assisted seniors in our community to enroll them in the wait list that Bristol had through their website. And right now I can tell you we're also working with HES to put together a care support group for Portuguese and English individuals. I can take any questions if you have it at this moment.
That was comprehensive. Thank you. Is there questions from the council? No. Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, next on our list is Z, which is American Legion Boys, which we approved last year, 374, in essence, the same at 375 recommendation. Is there, no, there is not. Thank you. Chris saw that one coming. Next is Friends of Linden Place. The request, we haven't had a request in the past. Is that right? It's shows a request for this year of 1,250, but it was 0 in the past. Is there a all right. So Friends of Linden Place, certainly. I remember to take my mask off when I'm speaking and then put it back on. Yeah. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been several years since Linden Place applied for any assistance.
Could you state your name for the record? Sorry, I should have started there.
Yeah, sorry about that. My name is Susan Battle. I'm the executive director of Linden Place, or we're known as Friends of Linden Place is our official name, here in the center of Bristol. And yeah, it's been several years since we applied for funding, but when we started to plan our 2021 year, we realized we have some really compelling programs that we want to pull together in June. And these events in particular are ones that we thought that it would be great to partner with the town, have some support from the town. They will take place in the center of Bristol and really celebrate the contributions and history of African Americans to our town. So it really involves 3 events that work together all within June. The first one being Len Cabral, who is an internationally known storyteller, coming to Linden Place to tell stories of Africa, Cape Verde, the Caribbean, all these areas then have, immigrants who, whether against their will or of their own free will, ended up in Bristol. So there's lots of connections to the Caribbean, Cape Verde, and Africa even today here in Bristol. Juneteenth, if you're not familiar with Juneteenth, it's Emancipation Day in African American history and culture. And Linden Place is planning a very exciting event celebrating this day. In addition, we are installing a medallion, a Rhode Island slave history medallion at Linden Place. And this, I think, is very important for the town. This really is more, it's bigger than Linden Place. This is something that, you know, we as a town can recognize Bristol's contribution to the transatlantic slave trade in the 18th, 17th, 18th, and early 19th centuries. It will be not, you know, it will not be an event that, you know, goes over, you know, atrocities or anything of that nature. It's a celebration. It's a celebration in conjunction with the Rhode Island Slave History Medallion Board and group. It once again will celebrate the culture of African Americans and their contributions to building the country that we have today. It will include live music, dance. It will include speakers. It will really be a town event. Everything will be outdoors. Everything will be COVID safe. And thirdly, we plan to have a reading of Frederick Douglass's very famous speech, What is the 4th of July to a Slave? And that is a very moving event. It's been done in other towns across the country. It's where, you know, the town, people of Bristol will get together at Linden Place, and there will be a reading of Frederick Douglass's very moving speech. And people from the community will be invited to come up and read passages of that speech. So once again, just 3 really engaging, open to the community events that we think will be educational, will be culturally enriching, and we'd love to have your support.
Susan, may I suggest, if there is no additional funds added to this portion, that you reach out to our tourism council, and because there are events in downtown Bristol, that it could be something that you could work collaboratively with them. I'm not sure what the council wants to do here, but if that's, regardless of what happens, you should reach out to them. You can reach out to Diane Williams, I'm sorry. And speak to them, and it could be an opportunity to work together.
Thank you
Questions?
so much. Yeah, we really hope that this will be a partnership of several different organizations in town. So thank you.
I think it sounds really good. I mean, I'd like to put this aside for when we come back to questions about providing some income, and maybe not the whole thing, but at least something.
All right, so AA, Linden Place. All right. Anything else?
No, I agree with Mary. I think this is an important education outreach. It's also tying tourism, living in our truth. You know, so I'd be willing to put $600.
Me too, that's what I was thinking.
Like
about,
$600
like half of it, yeah.
So we'll come back to that as part of our question. Excellent. Anything else from the council? Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a great night.
Okay.
Next is BB, which is Bristol Garden Club. Last year was 608. This year proposed 625. Chris? No. Okay. And last was is the East Bay Chamber of Commerce. Previously, I don't think there was an application. There was one this year, and it was 0. And Mr. Administrator, I'm assuming that those 0, so we could continue to fund those that have asked us in the past because we didn't have the additional funds. So it's not about whether or not it's worthiness. It's about just being consistent with what we've done in the past. Is that fair? Okay. Is there a representation from East Bay? No. And that is everything. Did I skip anything? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for, and I'll say it one more time, this council thinks positively of all, and if you didn't speak, it's okay. We know. All right. Anything, so we've just covered them. Let me go and check my numbers here. Bear with me just a moment. Yeah, and that's it. Okay, so we are on recap mode, including going back to questions that we still have pending out there. The pending questions, we just added one. was, as in order when they started, was part-time, full-time, town clerk position. It was part-time, nope, we covered that one, sorry. The information from the library about the electronic wish list. Did we receive anything from the library about that?
We have not.
Okay.
But there also is an amended item too, if you recall the 5-year capital plan.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna, I
right,
just wanted
okay.
to
So you just above, I'm
recap
sorry, I
before we
just wanna
got
make sure
there.
that-
Yeah.
on there too. Okay.
And then we just talked about the Friends of Linden Place. So we'll come back to those questions. Let's go, as the clerk rightly pointed out, to our capital improvements program. The reason why we amended this, all of these things are in each department, but we've always, and will continue to do it this way, is put this all together. So we're all on the same page about what our 5-year plan is, that we agree on what our 5-year plan is, and something hasn't changed that we want to amend, adjust, prioritize, or deprioritize. So I'm going to ask the treasurer and the administrator.
Chris has his hand up.
Oh, Chris.
I just also want to let you know, we do have department heads listening in, so if there's any questions, I can show them up on the screen or whenever they come into the conversation.
There may be. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, the department heads, for being on to answer those questions. Julie, Mr. Administrator.
I can just introduce briefly the 5-year capital plan, which everybody here has seen before. As a quick refresher, the page 3 has how we prioritize projects. That's always a good thing to read because sometimes it feels like the project is urgent or has a particular priority, but once you read the description, it kind of makes you think a little bit differently about the project. So that's a helpful page. And then you have your insert, which is your large page there. And that has all 5 years of our upcoming projects, what we can see at this point, and it's a good way for us to organize our projects by department, by priority, try and get anything on there on the horizon, even if it may not be 5 years, we would put it in the 5th year just so we don't lose sight of it. So that's, and following that large 5-year plan, there's a little bit more information on the projects, and those are listed by year first and then by priority. And the last page of the report provides you with the left-hand side is what we said we were going to do with our capital last year in the 5-year plan. And then what the status, what we estimated the project cost to be, what the project came in at, what the status of it is, if it's been postponed, if it's been completed. There's some description on the right-hand side. So we're happy to entertain any questions. We can take it in any order.
I got a couple of comments. First, if you look at our priority ones, I really think we're doing an outstanding job with that. Which is exactly the way a 5-year plan is supposed to work.
When we started this, it was a whole lot of urgents and ones, and it's nice to see all of those coming off, and it's a lot more thoughtful, proactive planning.
One of the, so I'm going to just hit those real quick, was Town Hall Complex Tax Collection Assessment Software Conversion, Public Works Facility Renovation, and I know Director Perello had talked a little bit about this, so we'll ask him to weigh in a little bit more because we held off until we got to capital projects on this part. Public Works Automated Trash Truck, Fire Department Rescue Vehicle, which is replacing a 2012, Parks and Rec Town Common Tennis Court repairs, and Parks and Rec softball field fencing at the sports complex. So since I brought it up, I'm going to ask that, unless there's objection to the council, I'm going to ask if Director Perella is on. Tony, before we go there?
Just a quick question. Julie, the one that you provided to us with the binder, has there been any changes?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So is Director Perella on the call? Hi, Chris. You got the coolest background. What the heck? We can't hear you, I don't think, so.
No, not yet.
Oh, no. You got me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay.
So Chris, you touched on this a little bit, and we wanted to hold off till we were at the capital conversation, and it included facility renovation and automated trash truck. Could you speak to those?
Okay, so the automated trash truck, we touched about that the other night, how important it is. Right now, we only have frontline trucks, and they all go out every single day. There's no time to service them. If they break down, it just changes the whole way we deploy our personnel. So we've spec'd out a new truck. We're thinking it's somewhere in the range of 350,000. The problem we have is the wait time. If we order it today, you're typically looking at about a year before we get it here. And that's going to present a problem because, like I said, we really do have to start taking one of these primary trucks off the road to service periodically. So I think that's the best we can do. We're exploring some new options. There's perhaps another body company that provides the same product that's might be able to get like as soon as November. But in any event, we're working on that. As far as the garage goes, so just so we're clear, this isn't a new building to replace the DPW building. In other words, our offices, where the people come in to do business, that's all going to be exactly the same. What we're going to do is we're proposing to build a new mechanics garage. And that new garage, we're hoping to be somewhere around 100 by 100 space type of building. Nothing fancy, but a place where we can put new heavy duty vehicle lifts in there. And the mechanics can expand because we've just completely outgrown where we are. It'll also be used to house all those new trash trucks that we bought. Really should be housed indoors overnight, but they can't because we don't have the height to get them in some of those bays. So we need to be able to tuck those new trucks away. And we also need to be able to spread out our mechanics operation. And how this really came to light is one of the bids that was in progress when I came here is the heavy duty lift and a lighter, like a 20,000 pound lift. And the problem is the trust came in and they were really not happy with the heavy duty lift that our mechanics work on. They weren't ready to deem it completely unsafe where they were going to tell us to cease and desist using it. But we've had to take some measures to ensure the safety, like the mechanics have to take the extra step of using jack stands underneath the lift, which is time consuming. So as the bid went out and an engineering firm was contracted to draw up some plans, but when they came in, the problem is this lift has to be put so deep in the ground and there's just no way to do that in there without being an incredibly expensive operation, especially like how deep you have to go into the cement. The other problem was we don't even know if there's going to be soil remediation needed because I'm sure there will be because there's all kinds of oil that is soaked in over the years. So when the bids came back, you're talking about 450,000 for the heavy duty lift, the 60,000 pound. And then for the 20,000, I want to say that wasn't too much more than we thought because that's a bolt on top of the cement. But with soil remediation, you could be looking at $750,000 for a lift that the vendor told us if you put it into new cement that's poured to spec, it's about 175,000. So it's 1/4 the price. So at this point, and in addition to the needs we have to expand the garage area for the mechanics and the more height that we need to tuck these expensive trucks away at night, the administrator and I discussed this, and we think this is the time to really invest in a garage for those mechanics. Again, nothing fancy, just something. I mean, we're going to be really restricted by where we're going to fit it. So we have to have a survey done and really work through some of these things. But we were really hoping to get about 100 by 100 square foot building. Again, space building, probably metal, nothing fancy, just something that we can pour some thick concrete in, install those lifts, and be able to tuck away our equipment.
Questions for Chris? I think that was really clear. Thank you.
I just have one more
Please.
question for. Hey, Chris. I just had a question on the road reconstruction and repaving plan. Looks like we have this down for $1 million, and I was just curious on that plan.
Can you tell us where you went to? It's okay that you went
I'm sorry,
there.
I'm actually in 2023 capital projects. I know we're in 2022, but I'm just looking just to also just find out how that repaving plan is going currently.
Okay, so as far as road resurfacing goes, Let's start with last year. It was completed. We were very pleased with the vendor. It came in slightly under what we thought. They did an outstanding job. The punch list that they had to address was minimal compared to what I've seen historically from some of the vendors. For this year, we're in the process now of working through this, and it's kind of painstaking because what happens is when you have to go down further than just what a typical mill and overlay is, like if you can't get 3.5 inches or so of good asphalt to work with, then you really, especially when you're, within 200 feet or 100 feet of any wetlands or the water, there's so much permitting that has to be done. So a lot of the roads that I identified as needed require full reclaiming, and a lot of them do require permitting. So we're trying right now. I started with a group of roads. The town manager looked at it. We sent it to beta. What it came in at is more than double what we're spending this year. So we're in the process of shaping it down, cutting down on the linear feet of some of them, removing some of the others, looking into how we handle some of this permitting. And I really can't tell you exactly what streets we're going to do yet, but it's in progress. But it will be a little lighter cost-wise than last year. We've shaped it down a little bit.
But it sounds like to me, you guys, the plan is to do it right once. So we're getting what we pay for is by going down a little bit further, correcting the drainage problems, and really fixing it instead of just putting a quick layer over on.
Exactly.
Sounds like it's going to cost a little bit more, but we're going to get more out of it.
We will, and we can shape the amount of streets that we do based on the amount of money that we put towards the project. So we're in the process of working that out now. I've got a new list of streets that I've taken some out, putting some in that I'll sit down with the administrator and go over and get his thoughts on. But to answer your question, so that's in progress, and you are correct. We're trying to go after the roads that most need the base repaired.
Mr. Chairman, to those points, the 2013 beta engineering study is still being used, but we recognize that it really it's time for an update. So we compare those lists and we start at the bottom. So we have like a hot sheet of the most frequently complained about roads, and we compare that to the list, and that's how we're trying to start at the most severely disrepaired roads from that 2013 list.
Like an emergency room triage, right?
Yeah, the other point The other point I wanted to make is that this year's road paving includes the final section of sidewalk on Hope Street. Last year, we went from Creek Lane to Colt Avenue on west and east side of Hope Street, just repairs in kind. And we're going to try to complete the rest of Hope Street from Colt Avenue north. So that's part of the $1 million road paving also. We're hoping that we bundle that in with the paving contract. We might be able to get it a little bit cheaper this year.
Good.
Excellent.
Great to get the update. Thank you.
Tony?
No, just very briefly, I'm right in tune with the administrator and the director. I mean, that was one of the issues we had previously that we deal with right now is the overlay things that have happened over time previously that caused major issues with many of our residents where they were flooded, the garages, driveways, and yards, just because we just raised roads. Now we actually milling them down and removing, and addressing the drainage as well. And I agree 100%. I'd much rather see us do less but do well than just doing for the sake of doing it.
Yep, agreed.
So good job. Let's keep it up.
While we have the director on, and feel free that just because I hit year one priority doesn't mean that we need to focus on that as Tim just did. No, not at all. So, but we have the director, let's use his time wisely. So if there's something else that you wanted to ask him while he's on, or the administrator with the director, certainly.
I just have two questions. I think they may be the administrator, either one of you. So on the road, you said you were using the beta plan from 2013 of the list of the worst roads. How many of those have we completed? Are we like almost done with that list and need to move on and develop a new list, or?
Yeah, it's time for a new list. But as I said, so we'll take our hot sheet and we'll look and we'll go to the bottom of the list. So it's categorized, the best condition to worst. So we'll look at the worst and we'll see if any of those, so I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I would say, Director, help me out here. How many on the bottom of the list have been done since 2013? I'd say.
So we've been able to, over the years, historically, they've done a pretty good job, according to what I'm seeing in that pavement management system, of attacking the worst streets. So there are a good amount of them, but I think we've kept up. We'll know when we do the new pavement management system, because some roads change completely. I mean, they might look okay back then, but now as traffic changes, as more weight goes down those streets, and I mean, it just changes. But I think that there's still quite a few at the bottom. I think we've done an okay job keeping up from what I see, looking at it historically, because I wasn't here, but it looks like we've kept up with some of them, but there are still some that have been on the bottom of that list for a while that are just going to require an awful lot of permitting, some of them that are near the water, some of them that, so we're trying to attack those this year, and we'll get as many as we can done within this budget that we have, so.
If I may, and problem we face every year is the conditions of the roads change dramatically year to year. And I'll reference a few years ago, Medicum Acres behind former Rite Aid. That entire neighborhood, all of a sudden, we weren't able to sweep it, and we had difficulty plowing it. When the plow would go down the road in the wintertime, we would just tear up the pavement. So where a lot of those streets weren't on the beta 2013 as a dire need, we kicked those up, which set some of the other streets that were on there, left them on the list. But that was, the list changes year to year after, the winter time especially. So the list is very good to use to help, and we try to get the outliers done. But year to year, there are special needs that come up, and we have to do more, as we say, more triage on those streets. So we really can't stick to that list. We can't even wait a whole year on some of them not to address them. They get that bad.
Steve, can I ask you, what do you think? So, the potential for grants for the new scenic road of 114 in High Street, that we just got the designation, and how we potentially could use some of that money if we apply for it. I understand it's more competitive, but, in terms of sidewalks down on the southern end of Hope Street, around Lobster Pot, Wally Park, that area. I mean, is that anything that can maybe be coincided, bundled into, I don't know when that money may be available, but to, bundle it in with some of the other road paving contracts or something like that, so that we could, get some of that work done?
Yeah, well, I'm hopeful that designation does help us with grant opportunities. We've been waiting an awful long time for the Department of Transportation to do the sidewalks. And as we all know, we just couldn't wait any longer. So we're just repairing them in kind. But we'll certainly, if it doesn't look like it's coming, we just can't wait. And the municipality is going to have to step forward. What we learned was that the state builds the roads, they build the sidewalks on state roads, but it is up to the municipality to maintain them. That doesn't mean rebuild them, that is to maintain them. But to rebuild those sidewalks, it's millions and millions of dollars, because they'll have to be surveyed properly, and there are the tree requirements now. And even to do the work we did last summer, we had to do overlays over the roots. We couldn't touch the roots on the trees because it is a state scenic highway, and the permitting would have really held us up. So we started the permitting already, but it looks like it's going to be overlay over the roots again. And as they deteriorate, we just have to stay on it.
And then on Tanyard, my last question is just Tanyard Brook in, can't see what these glasses are, 2024. Is that, maybe a Julie question, is that because that's when we would have retired some bonds, and the next time we would have the money to really, or the capacity to go out for a larger piece?
No, I think that we're sort of, Diane Williamson is constantly thinking about grant opportunities for that. So with any luck, we could seek out a grant opportunity and do this a little bit ahead of that. But we just had so many projects on the list that I think that was kind of our best guess, right?
Yeah, so we did 2/3 of the project. And what the good thing is, the theory was start where the outflow was. So the brook is actually flowing pretty well now. We still have to finish from Richmond Street North to the DPW. But it's very expensive. It's about $4 million. So we're just waiting. We're waiting for a grant opportunity. And as recent as today, I did something came through an email, and Diane Williamson looked at it today. But hopefully, maybe this stimulus package with infrastructure improvements that might come and help us. But to borrow right now another $3 or $4 million, we're not getting flooding there right now. Nothing since phase 2 was done. We haven't had any significant flooding. It's really flowing well from Richmond Street south. So good.
So with this construction on the DPW property and its proximity to the brook and all of that, like, is that obviously that's all going to be come into play on how you site the building, or would you have to maybe do some work when you go do that project?
So
I should have to dig down that far.
Yeah, there is a floodplain there on the DPW property, so the building would have to be like where the salt shed is now. In that grass area where the carnival parking lot is during the summer. That has to stay pretty much how it is. That's floodplain there. But the other good news is we did get that grant. Permitting is just about complete now. We had to do an archaeological survey recently on the State Street Reservoir there. So hopefully this summer you'll start to see some work going on there, and that's going to help drainage also. That's actually fed by Medicum Avenue drainage, the State Street Reservoir. So we're gonna do some work there also this year, which is part of Tanyard Brook. So
right.
We call that 3A. Phase 3A.
TB3.
Anything else for the director?
Yes, just a quick question. No, but to your point about Medallion, that's so true. I remember when we had a big bad flood, and I just happened, I said, State Street will be a good way to go up. The water was coming down. Let me tell you, I thought the van, I thought it was like a flash flood, you know, really, it was that bad. That's how much water was coming down State Street, you know. Just a quick question, and you're probably doing this already, in terms of keeping record of how, how many roads we pave in the year that we pave in the roads, so that I know some of us will not be here for the cycle when it comes around. Hopefully it'll be another 25, 30 years, you know, by the time we redo them. But just to keep a cycle going, are we keeping record of those?
We do, Councilman, and one of the biggest reasons we do it is we add them to the 5-year moratorium. So when the road cut permits come in, that's, you know, we make sure that unless it's an emergency, if it is an emergency cut, we'll always grant them permission, but obviously there's a whole bunch of parameters they have to meet. And if it's not an emergency, they have to go curb to curb. So that's one of the main reasons we do, but every road that's been done is still being tracked. And I mean, we have a record of all of it.
Thank you. Anything else for the director? So looking through our 5-year plan, anything that relates to DPW, and I'm not forcing questions just since he's here.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Take care.
So as we just said, I focused initially on one, but we've kind of gone around, which is absolutely fine. The goal of this evening is so we're making sure that we're all on the same page, that we agree with the 5-year plan and its priorities. And if there's something on here that you disagree with, or you like to say, this is the time that we can talk about it. So we make those decisions and move forward all together. So anything else that's coming to mind that you'd like to discuss?
And which department?
It is, yeah, actually, you can take the ball and run if you'd like to go to another department.
I'll wait till after.
Oh, Mayor, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I just had a question for Tim in Parks and Rec. For
Well, look at that.
Oh, good.
Tim, I think Sarah actually is here tonight.
Is it about the lighting? Silent?
Sarah's here. Tim did a great job.
Great,
Sarah wanted to be here.
Awesome.
Tim is relegated to the back. I know, isn't it weird? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to.
So if you're watching on Zoom right now, when we can look at, for example, Chris was just on, our eyes are going this way and also back there. So it looks like we're not looking at you, but it's just the way that I know this is probably obvious, but we're all sitting at tables all spread apart. Typically, we would be up here at the council dais and everything is set up that way, so it would work. But currently, it was more important for us to be together than to be focused at the TV, right? It's a little weird though, right?
It's a small inconvenience for.
Well, that TV is bigger, without my glasses, I can actually see people better on that one than that one. It looks better to look at that one straight across.
On a side note, that TV pulls right off the wall. So when we're in a council meeting, we'll be able to get a nice crisp view of that. And then the public will still have a crisp view of what's going on.
I think I'm gonna be in their way.
No, fine. You just have to hunch like this will be great. So
It's gonna be nice for.
Sarah?
Sarah is on, her mic is off right now, so I just,
Okay.
whenever.
So we were having fun, but let's get Sarah on.
Yes.
It's gonna be nice for PowerPoint presentations
Oh,
too. Like,
outstanding.
Just seeing plans, instead of, sometimes they have the board member that would speak and you couldn't really see.
And this benefits all of our boards and commissions, whether it's HDC with proposed changes in pictures or it's planning board with clear documents showing what's going on. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
She's on? Sarah?
Hello, good evening.
Hey there, Sarah. How are you?
Good, how is everyone?
Excellent. So both Councilman Sweeney and Councilman Perrella had questions, and who started? I forgot.
Tim. You want to?
Tim, go ahead.
All right. Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Good, Tim, how you doing?
Good, doing well. I just was seeing that the Asylum Road lighting, and I know the Parks and Rec is going to be open later, and people have always asked me about the lighting on that road. And I see here it's a combination of funding of grant money, and it looks like C would be operating capital. So I'm just looking to get an update on it. It's, I know that Parks and Rec is becoming more and more vital to the community, and having that dark road lit would be, reducing liability. So I just wanted to ask you, get your input on it.
Right, Tim, so quite a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, Walter had started a dialogue with DOT. DOT had some money and they were gonna put the lighting in on that road. Of course, we were ecstatic because we had, hopes that we were gonna be in the Quinta Gamelin building soon. So I remember Walter going to meetings. I remember I went to one towards, I wanna say maybe 8 years ago, and then I guess the money got spent on something else, but it did pique us our really what do I want to say, our continued complaints about getting out of that parking lot, and the kids that leave from the community center, the after school program, those kids are leaving, particularly in the fall when they're walking up the street with their hoodies on, and just like you said, a lot more traffic coming in and out. We have a lot more senior population coming in and out. So we just really want to make it as, as easy to see as possible along that road. So that's something that I put on there, either to revisit with DOT, to look for grant funding. I've always heard that the town's responsibility is the road coming in and the state's responsibility is the road going out. Is that the clear understanding that you all have?
That's how I understand it.
It depends on who has the money at the moment, right? But it's a great question. It's been something that it was lit up for years and years, and those posts rotted and were bumped and all of that, and it's disappeared. Well, I think it's a great thing to stay focused on, and please reach out. Obviously, you work through the administrator, but if there's opportunities that the town can take advantage of, I think it's a win-win and a shared expense for the town and the state. I'm happy to certainly support something. Honestly, I'd happy to support the state paying for the whole thing, but if that's not a possibility, then
Yeah.
splitting it, I think it's imperative. It's a great point.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was just
Thank-
something to bring up and talk about.
So I apologize, Sarah, did you mention a ballpark figure on that, or no, did I not hear you? Maybe you mentioned it, and
I did not mention a ballpark figure on that, but I.
we don't know, right? Or,
Right,
okay, all right, thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Sarah,
Sorry, ma'am.
hi, thanks. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the tennis courts repairs on the town common.
Sure. So as I'm sure all of you have noticed, the tennis courts are getting a lot of play from pickleball, which has been sweeping the country for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And it's a great sport for those. A lot of former tennis players play. But it's a great sport for our older active adults, actually for anybody. But I know the older adults have really taken up to it and go by the common at any time they're playing there. And yeah, it's a great sport. So we need to get those courts. Right now, there's quite a few cracks in them, but they're not trip hazards. But there is a fix that's called Coat, which is actually fills the cracks and then puts a thin membrane over it. And then so any cracks won't come through the membrane and it gets painted. And that could be like a 7-year fix as opposed to $200,000 for brand new tennis courts, which I don't think we need right now because the cracks aren't trip hazards yet. They haven't lifted on either end. But I do think it's important to fix them and get them ready in line to play pickleball and tennis. I know tennis is making a resurgence too, because tennis and golf are 2 of the sports that never really got canceled through the pandemic, and people have really gone back to playing those sports too. So yeah, I think it's important to get the town common tennis courts in better shape.
So let me ask you my question about this, because that wasn't actually my question. Thank you for that answer. So, no question they need to be repaired. I would kind of almost disagree with you as to whether or not they're tripping hazards, because I did go up there with folks from the pickleball group, and I was kind of surprised at how bad it was. But I was being asked about a grant that many communities got. I believe it was from DEM sometime this past year to create pickleball courts. And I was asked why we didn't apply for it, and I was kind of surprised about that. I think it was for a number of different projects. It could have been. I was kind of surprised because I said, well, we always apply for funding if it's out there.
Yeah.
And the pickleball and the request to have, even if it was mixed use, but at least like say one tennis court devoted to tennis, and then maybe 1 or 2 that were exclusive pickleball courts, so that they're not just painting lines and they're really up against the fence almost pretty much. So I was wondering about a plan for dedicated pickleball courts. And with the lighting, I'm not sure you can make any more space up there, the way the lights have been put in. And it also brings me across, that's my immediate question for this year. And is it worth spending the $27,000 or to look for some money to do the whole full-fledged project? And you have in year 2025, you have the basketball court on the common and you have the playground renovations. I mean, if you did the tennis court repairs now, with the whole project, with the tennis courts, the tennis court, pickleball courts, the playground, and the basketball court be bundled into one project because they're all very close to each other.
The basketball court's already been done.
Yes, I thought it was, but I'm seeing it on here listed, so.
Yep. The only thing that hasn't been finished on that is the 2 players' benches that are going to go in, and the painting, which will go in when we have warmer weather.
Okay, so about the thought about dedicated pickleball courts.
Yep. So Neil Freely, who owns JG Coffee Company and who has been in the business of tennis courts and now pickleball courts for a long time, I met with Neil and we did talk about the possibility of how we can, maybe reconfigure that, maybe put a couple of the courts designated just for pickleball, and then maybe a multi-use one, and then maybe one just tennis. I know that it's important to the pickleball players to stay on the common. I know at one time, I think they were looking for an actual court of their own to go side by or behind the tennis courts. That's just something to be thinking about going forward if we want to change the footprint on the common like that.
My understanding is that, I mean, I don't really know if they'd be interested in going somewhere else. I believe that there were some pickleball courts made out of some of the tennis courts up at the high school. My understanding was that it was just way too windy to actually play pickleball there.
So initially, so when we embraced the pickleball group, we tried to find wherever we could to have them play. And I did call the high school and had them, we had lines painted on a couple of the courts and they were fine with that. It was too windy. I had offered to buy a windshield for those courts, but that wasn't, I do believe the pickleball is really just like the common.
I just feel bad that they, every time that they go to play, and there are a lot of people who play, that there are no dedicated courts and they have to, put their own netting up. They have to reconfigure and have a space, like their own container there that they have to, I don't know who purchased it, maybe it's the town, but they have to do all of that work just to be able to play before and after each game. It just seems to me that we want to have, it would be good to have some dedicated space. And I think even if it's like, as you said, because I guess pickleball can be, one court can become like two pickleball courts, like
Right.
one tennis court.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you had one and one, and then one that could be mixed use, I mean, I think that is a better solution than to have to, go and reconfigure it yourself every time you're going to play that, the game. And like I said, there's a lot of people all throughout this winter, there has been too, unless there's been snow there.
Yeah, they're a very big and active group. Mary, if we had the lines on there, it wouldn't be much more than just taking out those nets out of the bin, so that wouldn't be a big deal. But the problem was that initially, US Tennis Association didn't want any other color on the tennis courts. So those are designated tennis courts. So when US Tennis acknowledged that, pickleball was coming in, they thought that a fadeaway line, which was 2 or 3 shades darker or lighter than the green on the court, would not impact the tennis players and would be enough for the pickleballers to really to see. What happened is that fadeaway line is really just that. It is hard to see. So the pickleballers had to go up and they were putting on, different colors with chalk and stuff like that. But it should have been completely painted last year for pickleball lines, but it wasn't. Going forward, if we do get it, painted correctly, it wouldn't be a big deal for them just to take out the nets. But I agree that a couple of the courts should be pickleball, one multi-use and one for tennis. I think that's fine.
So I could even see them like being expanded a little bit, where you could add one more court. I'm not sure if it's possible with the lighting. The other thing I wanted to just mention, and I've mentioned this to Steve, and I think he may have met with some of the pickleball people, is that, and it could have been because it was probably February when I was there, or, and the snow had melted and it was very, very muddy around the edges. And I think a lot of that was from the construction of the lighting.
Yeah.
Potentially. And so you can't even really move back because the pickleball courts, the way they are, they have to move back almost to the fence.
Yeah.
And now you've got that big mud, that little area that's pretty muddy. And I'm not sure if that's just because of the season that I was there, or if that's just the case. From what I understand from the person I was speaking to, it's kind of been a problem. And so, the lighting, I think is good that you have the lighting there, but the lighting now prohibits us probably potentially from expanding a little bit.
Yeah, so technically that shouldn't be the way it is. The tennis court there should not have grass on the inside. That was done many, many years ago. The lights that we just did, we just put the new tops on those. Those poles were already there. So if the courts were to be really redone completely, then those poles would have to be on the outside. They wouldn't be on the inside of the courts. But it is what we have right now. And I do believe it was muddy because of all the digging that had been over there, and the grass hadn't really taken hold or anything like that. So yeah, it is muddy.
I mean, I'm super careful because I've had like a share falls lately, and I mean, over the years, it's sort of taken its toll. I really thought that court was really in bad shape. I mean, I did see what I would view as several potential tripping hazards. And so, I mean, I think they're pretty bad, and whoever, hopefully it's going to be super flat, because I think that really hurts us for liability if it continues to be the way it is, no matter who's playing on it, tennis or pickleball.
Right,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have it in this year's capital. It is funded, hopefully. And in fact, we spent some time, I played, me and Diane Williamson had an extensive game against the treasurer and the assistant parks director, and we really beat them. Yeah, we really beat them pretty good. So we know the court well, and we have 20, how much money did we put in?
27, I'm just asking if
27,000.
that's going to be enough to like
Well,
do what we
the-
need to do.
You know, we looked at it, and I know we've been talking to somebody that's been in the field a long time in repairing those courts. What's good about the cracks is they're not uneven cracks. They need to be mended, just as they recently did it at the high school. And the good news is, hopefully we'll continue to get a lot of use with tennis and pickleball. As the director said, we want to do exclusive as many pickleball courts as we can in there. Designed by this person who does this for a living. And then the middle court would be multi-use, it would be dual striped for tennis or pickleball, and then you would have an exclusive tennis court. So, you know, as far as the grass around the edge, we already made a determination when we went out there.'re going to try to regrade that this summer or this spring. So we're going to do some improvements. Last year we did the lighting there, and this year we're going to do we're asking for money to repaint it and repair it. But we just did the best. We just, you know, we are making headway. The basketball court, we just fixed that last summer, and it's going to get repaired. Same thing. We had voids in that, but those were, I believe, much worse than the tennis court.
Yeah.
But that was $50,000 with our own DPW doing most of the removal of the existing. So, you know, I'm pleased that Recreation is on it. They're aware of the issue. We went out, we spent some time with the pickleball group, and we're thrilled to be able to help them this summer. And hopefully the funding stays in place so we can do it. And it'll be multi-use. And I will say, I'm not really in support of removing the tennis courts. That's a long history and fabric of the community, as the director said. There are tennis players, so let's do both of them. We'll keep our eyes open for some grants. The DEM grant one comes up, maybe we'll get pickleball court somewhere else, and that would be the best. But right now, we're fixing it, and hopefully this summer I'll report back to you that it's all done, and we have a lot of happy pickleball players.
Pickleball championship in Bristol.
Anything else for
I
Sarah?
want to have that. It's like 200 people that play.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions in the capital project? I know that obviously a lot of this stuff is old hat for us. A lot of this has been things that we've spoken about. And as things bubble up, as the years go by, we're going through them. So
I guess one question I had, and this is a quick one, I think that could be pretty quickly answered, is I was wondering if maybe the administrator can maybe speak to this. Do you think that there's going to be any like grant opportunities for like HVAC repairs with all the coronavirus stuff that's kind of been happening, and kind of this heightened sense we have now of air quality and, you know, HVAC stuff and everything like that? Have you been seeing anything like that coming across your radar? Because that might work out pretty well for us if we have that plan for fiscal year 2023. And if any of that stuff's coming down the pipe, then, you know, we might luck out on that.
Oh, and you're referring to the HVAC for library?
Yeah, there's the library and
Yeah,
the
and
Quinnigamma, which are both
Quinnigamma,
also kind of those cooling centers too, which could be like one of those, they have the EMS grants and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, question is for the municipal budget, I don't know yet, we don't know yet. For the school district, it looks like they can make, as I stated yesterday, they can make HVAC upgrades. But yeah, that would help us greatly, so hopefully we can. I think, I know one of our priorities is at recreation, the Quinta Gamblin building for the field house there, that would be terrific.
Anything else on the budget, on the capital portion of the budget? No? Well, thank you. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to make sure everybody was up to speed and on the same page. Okay, so we have gone through our agenda. So what is left is the questions, and there actually isn't many of them. So we'll just start at the first one since it is number one. So conversation started on, was it the first night? First night, first question, love it. The town clerk is asking to take a part-time position and make it a full-time position. My note said 22,994 is the current part-time, to 45,998 would be the difference. The discussion, we put it as a question because we kind of, I wouldn't say we hit a wall. We didn't feel like we were going to have a resolution on Monday, kind of like most of this. So I'd like to open it up is to my colleagues, concerns, questions, other things. Did we not cover something for you? Are you leaning away that we can kind of move forward with this?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Melissa.
Certainly.
Listen, I just had a question in regards to why was that the position was previously full-time, right? Then it was removed. Do we know originally why? I mean, it was full-time for a very long time, right? And then my second question is, how much does your department totally bring in for this?
So thank you for the question. So that full-time position has been full-time for decades.
For what?
For decades.
Decades,
It's been full-time for decades. It was reduced last year to a part-time position. I believe it was in the budget of last year, saying that some efficiencies were made to the clerk's office. And I do want to state a couple of things on that is, I think some of the issue too is when that position was cut, it was in the beginning of COVID, and I don't know that people actually noticed the initial effects of that, making that position full-time to part-time, because as you can recall, the town hall was closed for, I think, a little over a month. A lot of people were working remotely. We had limited access to the town hall. Things were put in drop boxes at that time. And so I think it was really hard for people to actually determine what that residual effect of that full-time position actually going down to a part-time position. But like I said, that position has always been a full-time position. And I'm sorry, the second question was?
Question, I was just curious, like, what is your department, what is the department bring in revenue wise?
So this year, I think we're at just about 660,000. 660, and I also want to remind the council that year over year, those revenues increase. We don't decrease in our revenue, so the work is there. And honestly, there's more and more work every year, and the revenues will show it. And that position is pretty self-supported by the revenues that we do take in.
One of the things that I did speak to Melissa about this after the night that we had this discussion. When I got home, I thought, I wonder if this was one of those cuts that happened. It wasn't, but I was wondering if one of the cuts that happened, like last year, as we were sitting here, every day it was worse and worse, and things were getting worse and worse. And if that was up, but it was put in by the former clerk at the beginning of the budget process. So, and it may have been in relation to, I guess the timing coincides somewhat with that additional hours that the town hall was open. But I do think that, I often wonder, I didn't call and ask this question, but I wonder if the clerk were here, if Lou were here, would he have put that money back? Would this be back to a full-time position once you saw, I mean, so it didn't start rightly till July 1st, right, with the new budget.
Okay.
So, things were a little bit slower. As things start to pick up, would it be that you see that this isn't working? Because I think one good point that was made was not only is that we have X number of extra hours among the employees, but that the town hall is open more too. So there's potentially more people at the counter that extra time. So I think it's a busy department, and I think it may get busier. I mean, right now I think it's very hard to, I would imagine, let's put it this way, it's hard to imagine. It's probably pretty slow. I mean, it's like the wedding licenses, marriage licenses, stuff like that is not been such a big thing because nobody was getting married last year. Very, very few, you know what I mean? So there weren't
You
any.
couldn't meet anybody new. It was.
Well, I mean, there were no destination weddings, let's put it that way, your big dream wedding down wherever, a few people had them, but they did save a lot of money. Let's say if they got married, they saved a lot of money. But I think.
But I made you digress. Go ahead.
I mean, but I think
Go ahead.
that, it's hard to tell, like, what is the real level of work when things have been so displaced in a way. Certain things like real estate, I'm sure just kept going.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even whether people came in by appointment only or whatever, but so I often wonder what like the former clerk would have done at this point,
My 2 cents is that I'm sensitive to the request. I think we all are, and we hear what you're looking for. I think you have implemented some changes, like we were talking about the onboard, right? The software to follow boards and commissions. I think those continued efficiencies that you're making are going to pay off, but I think they're a seed right now. And I don't think we're seeing the fruits of that labor, and I don't think you're going to see them for a while. So for myself, I also don't want to hamstring, but this is if we put in a full-time position, that full-time position almost never goes away. And I would like to see what opportunities you have over the next year. But as I just said, I don't want to hamstring it. I reached out to Julie earlier today. Tony reached out to Julie before I did because asked a similar question. We were asking, what about, what could we look at with overtime? And Julie, the conversation that we had, probably the same one with Tony, was approximately you'd come up with a couple of hours. I forgot what we did with the math, but it was anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 is what we were talking about with overtime, if my memory was right. I would lean towards the higher of the two. And I think I would like to propose that along with the efficiencies that you've already done, with the ones that you're planning on doing, with new people and newer people getting their comfort factor higher and higher all the time, and then giving you, I'll call it an escape pod with that extra, with the overtime, if necessary. That along with maybe some other, maybe we use outside vendors for the mundane and less detailed work that we could get to do. For example, if there's scanning that can be done by an outside vendor to help you kind of get through whatever it happens to be. I'm not talking about anything particular, but if there's avenues there. But a full-time position is not only, as you know, it's a full-time position, it's the benefits that go along with that. There's a lot of things that come pretty strong with that. And we would also then have to find replacement for that part-time position. The part-time position is not the way it's currently built right now. It's not a union position. Union's not bad, but it's all about, there are dollars connected with all of that. I'd love to see you apply the efficiencies that you have and are going to give you an opportunity that if something happens, that you've got money in your budget to deal with overtime, and to stay open-minded that if 6 months down the road, the world is horrendous. I mean, we do have that possibility even then. If we look at this and it's horrible, we can look at making adjustments at that point. But I'd like to give it a little bit of time before, personally. But I know I've heard a little bit from Mary. I'd love to hear what the rest of you think. And
you do mean horrendous in a good way, though.
Horrendously busy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry. Yeah, that's a good point. So, I thought I knew what I meant, but I didn't convey
You knew what you
it
meant,
well.
but we've had a horrendous bad.
So I meant, so I'll restate that and say, if it gets busier and busier and the need is just overly evident, then I would certainly be happy to review it. But as I said, I don't want to take all possibility of trying to find a resolution away from it.
If I can make just a couple of comments on
Of
that,
course.
if that's okay. A couple of things I did want to note is that in the budget, it does reflect an increase of the medical on that. However, the person that is in that part-time position already receives full medical from the town. So that would not actually be an added cost. That would actually just be coming from a different department. And as that person was a part-time position in the other position that he holds, if that were to be replaced, that new part-time position actually wouldn't be required to have medical. So what I'm asking for is a $22,000 increase, basically just to restore what I've had there before. Because it has never gone down. It's actually always going up, which means that it's more work with less resources. The other, I'm sorry, if I can say one more thing.
Of course.
The other thing too is I am adding a lot of efficiencies, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna have dog licensing online, which is fantastic. But that allows the town hall, the town clerk's office, to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the people who are not coming in between 8 and 4, they're doing the work at 5 p.m., 6, 7, 10, 12, midnight, 1, 2. And then in the morning, when people come in, that's when they're completing that work from the hours when they're not here, when people are still doing work. So the work is there. The work has always been there. Every town clerk before me has had a full staff to accomplish the amount of work that we had. And I am simply asking for the same amount of support that every other clerk had to be able to put out those duties. I think that we hold a certain level of service. I mean, yesterday we were talking about the hallmark of Bristol and what we do as a community and how everybody helps each other. I don't want to overburden my staff where they can't take 2 minutes to talk to a resident that comes in to pay taxes to say, hey, I don't know the answer to that. That's not my department because they're so busy, and say, you know what, let me see if I can find that number for you. And they can help them because they're not completely overburdened. I have people in that office that have been here. I do have a new member, but the majority of the people I've here have been 7, 4. Melanie's been here for almost a little over a year. Jen's here been for 25 years. They're pretty seasoned, minus the new person. I understand that. But that new person also understands how the town works. So he's actually shifting value from another department. So it's not a missed value that I have there with that new employee or newer employee to the department. A couple of other things too is I know I'm new to this role as town clerk, but I've been in that department for 12 years. And I know that department better than anybody sitting here. And that is no offense to anybody, but I know that type of work. And I know that is not a part-time position. And that person that works there doesn't just do that duty of that post. That person is also there to cover the vacation time and sick time of other people. I can't have a person who's always been a full-time person with the same amount of work, increased work because the revenue is still coming in. We're giving residents more resources on being able to do work through the town clerk's office, and then I cut that. That's a disservice to the people that are here. And the $22,994, if that's what it comes out to, is 1 cent of the tax rate.
But see, but that's this year. Every year it goes up. And it should go up because an employee has cost of living increases, and it's very reasonable to have that. But a couple of things that are fair to bring up is that the hours that all of us have in town hall, not just the clerk, is everyone, is we figured it out to be about 50 more hours in a month. There's also, as you mentioned recently, the municipal court just recently opened up, but there was a lot of time that wasn't happening. And so I think there's a lot of places you could use that as both a positive and a negative, I suppose. I'm, as you can hear, I'm very resistant. You mentioned that you know the department best. I can't think of anybody that would know it better than you as currently, but the prior clerk that was here quite a long time said, I don't see the need for it because of, and it was pointed out that it was pre-COVID. To be very clear, I don't mean this as forever. I would love to see your efficiencies be put in place and see how it goes. And I myself would continue to be open to considering it. But again, not hamstringing you, making sure that you've got money in your budget. So if overtime is necessary, that you can deal with it. And I believe that there are, there's potentially some less than high skill things that could happen, whether it's an outside vendor. I know you and I spoke recently about funds that you have for archiving documents. There's potential ways of taking that out. Those basic things that are not detail critical, potentially have someone else do. That is one of, and maybe that's not the best answer, but it's just ideas that I have. And again, I'm open to the possibility. I'd just like to see if we can, I don't want to add more to the budget. You're right, it's 1 penny, but it's the way I think we all look at it. It's 1 penny there, it's 1 penny here, and then that old joke about, and suddenly it's $1 million here, or however that guy, I forget how it goes, but you add it all up and it adds up very quickly. So not just this, it's this plus other things. So, and as you've heard throughout the course of all this discussion that you've been a big part of, is we'll talk about $2,000 and $1,000. We're going to talk about $600 in a moment. So every dollar, and I know you agree, is that every dollar is important. So, but I've talked a lot. I'd like to,
Sure.
I want to know what everybody thinks, and then we can take a motion and move forward.
I think what I'm most concerned about not moving this to a full-time position is what I'm hearing is the balance. There isn't enough coverage to cover people if they're out on vacation, to kind of get the work done, to move things forward. Also, what I'm nervous about is burning out our employees where they're so overworked that we end up in like people just sort of dropping out. So, you know what I mean? I'm trying to understand and get that, make sure that the town clerk has everything that she needs and her team needs to do the job well and properly without getting burnt out, that balance. So that, to me, I kind of struggle. You make some really good points about the efficiencies coming into play and everything else. And I think from a year from now, the clerk's office is going to be a completely different game. At the same time, I also want to keep our institutional knowledge, and I want to keep our employees happy and safe and healthy. And I think giving the full-time employee maybe a good thing to start, and then we'll revisit it in a year next budget. But those are my thoughts. So just being
points.
honest and
That's
how I
great points.
feel from what I'm hearing from you. So,
I mean, my thought is this is similar to that. I think one of the driving things for me is that it always was full-time, and then it moved to part-time for just this year, but this year was not really a regular year. Now, maybe when it was being developed, when the budget was being developed last year, that sort of January, February timeframe, I mean, COVID was over there. It was, it was in other countries, it was on the West Coast, it wasn't here. And, so I don't really know that any of the experience is actually legitimate of what is our everyday work here. And so I am a little concerned. I think the other good point that Melissa made is this, that if this is the case, I just want to, and I totally believe you, I just want to make sure that if the part-time person who's here is already getting benefits, and I'm not saying that person would even bid in or be the person that would end up being hired, but I mean, that would be the thing. If there's already benefits attached to that person and that person became the full-time, then you're right. It really is it's not the cost of the benefits plus the job, because benefits, I know just in my workplace, so we have to pay for all of our grant. I mean, a 40-something thousand employee is, a good family plan is a good, $30,000, dollars between family, MERS, everything else. So if that's the case, and if you replace, hypothetically, this person over at another department, then you would not give that person benefits. I mean, usually part-time people don't get benefits. So, I mean, I think that is something to take into account. Of course, if the person says, I don't want this job, or you don't, it's not a good match, then that may require that additional money get put in. So then you're talking like 50,000. But for the 22,000, I mean, I think sometimes you can be penny wise and pound foolish when you have something that's very sort of busy and you talk to people. I had said to Nathan in a prior conversation, the most time I mean, we all deal with your office on like, hi, how are you? Like a quick thing, but it's not like going to pay your taxes when you just go in, you pay your taxes, you leave. Like my biggest thing that I had with the clerk's office was probably my aunt's guardianship from my aunt. And that was something I really didn't know a lot about. I mean, I did have an attorney. Lou spent a fair amount of time with me. Nancy, when she was here, spent a fair amount of time with me. And then Michelle, I believe, took over the probate. So, I mean, these are not simple things. People come in if it's like death certificates or wills that might be stored in the back there. It's complicated things, and it's very, very, very important to people. It's very important that it's accurate, like your land evidence, that if you can find, I mean, I can't tell how many times I went back through there looking for wills because I couldn't find them anywhere else, and didn't find it either there either. But back in the day when people could file in the town hall. So I think there's a lot of things that are really very personal to people. They need to have some time spent with them. And, it is, I don't want to say be dramatic and say it's a matter of life and death, but it is a matter in many instances of great cost to families and great cost to people if it's not done or you don't have that guidance. And that is just from my personal experience.
Tony?
Okay, you brought up a good point. And I know Melissa would know that, having been a union rep. If this becomes a full-time position, will they have to go up for bid?
I wasn't a union rep, I just want to make that clear, but I wasn't a union yet.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
So will that position?
That would go to the union first. That would have to come up to, it would go to the union. It wouldn't go outside of the.
Right, but so
outside
it would
of
open
in-house.
up.
So it would open up, so if another union member wanted to take that place, then yes. But the staff here, I mean, the rest of the staff here, I don't know.
Could you explain I lost the significance.
Well,
of that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
because I can. See
I certainly
how
understand
it
the
would
union
be.
part of it. I just didn't get, I'm sorry.
Well, it will be the health benefits is one of them, and the other is obviously, we create a world of movement again, when things are settling.
Right, but the medical, everybody else has medical, so the medical still wouldn't change at that point. But the other thing too, because you do make a good point, is moving. So on Monday, I had informed the council that I don't have the notes from that day, but like Warren had just about equivalent to the same amount of employees that I have here, and they have a 16,000 per capita population there in Warren. Their revenue is, I want to say, almost half of what I make here. What is to say that one of my employees wouldn't leave here to go work there to make the same amount of money and doing the less amount of work? So at some point, I burn them out and they go somewhere else. And then I'm making an even bigger issue there with turnover because of the amount of work that's there. I don't think it's fair to the residents. I don't think it's fair to the employees. I think for what has always been there forever, I mean, I've been here it's going to be 14 years. And even well before that, it's always had that amount of staff to be able to carry out those duties. They're important duties. And as Mary had said, it's more than just people coming in and filling out a piece of paper. People actually take the time to assist people in the back because they can't find something. I can't tell residents, sorry, go back there, good luck. I don't have staff to go and help you. That we've never treated anybody that way ever since I've been here. And I don't want to be the first person to tell somebody that because I can't get the position that was there before.
But we're not doing that now though, right?
Well, we were closed for a while and it just started this year. So it's been a while, but there are times where, so today I had somebody out again. So on Monday I had somebody out. At some point, the people that are in this office, they have full-time jobs already. They have a lot of work that they have to do and they've been really great and I want to note that they are very well cross-trained. But for them to have a full-time position and to constantly be taking their time away to fill in the gap of a part-time position, and we're adding even more work to their part-time position. And then it's an issue when somebody has to be out sick. It's not a good situation and all the way around. It's just not. And I would not be asking the council if I did not need it. I'd rather be the hero and say, I don't need it. I can't honestly come here in front of the council and say, I don't need that. I need that. Not only do I need that, the residents deserve that. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel, and I think.
We appreciate you standing up and asking for help.
Can I ask a
Of course.
question quick?
Of course.
Thanks, my son. And I just want to add on to your point that Councilwoman Perella made about the like people remember that when they get good service from that office. And my wife has an aunt who had a very complicated land deal. And Melissa might remember this, but this was before you were elected, and she went into the office because she lives on like the Bristol Warren line. So there's just all kinds of weird complications there. And she still talks about it to this day, that, you know, the service that she was getting was high-end service. And it was probably during the time where you had, you know, the full-time faculty member there, or faculty member. I'm totally talking like a professor here. I guess one of the questions I have is, I know like we had COVID-19 and everything like that, that kind of made things look a little bit different in here for a little while. Are there any like areas of unanticipated growth that you might see, or any expectations that you have where things might be a little bit more crazier on, you know, this or that or the other thing once things kind of.
We always have periods of let's say chaos. So for instance, November was the election. Am I getting this like what we have during different months? So election times now, it's the emergency in-person voting. So there's an influx of the way we service people that come in. So not only do we have our regular jobs, now we have the added job of running those elections internally. The other part too is, so every month we have something. So March and April is dog tag month. So we have over 1,000 dogs for that amount of time. And so people are constantly coming in and asking questions. May is business license, certain business licensing. We have like the sidewalk licensing all in April. And then May will be the dog kenneling license. And I'm forgetting exactly what it is, but there's always added work every given month. So it's not, so it does ebb and flow at times. And will I tell you that somebody will be back there drinking a cup of coffee and saying hello? But that's also part of our job too, to work collaboratively and build those families and relationships, because they're the ones that at the end of the day, they're the ones that are helping each other. I mean, it's a really important job that we have. And not only do they only do their roles, and I'd have to say when we were running the clinic, there were people that would come in here because they didn't know where to go, or they're like, I don't have a computer. And the people in that office went well and over and beyond to say, help you, let me call them, let me get you the email address. You know, people come in with, we're kind of like the catch-all base in there. Every person that calls about, I'm not even joking, toilet problems, everything, we get every call about everything, and we don't turn people away. We really do our best to find a solution for their issue. So not only do we have our jobs, but we also have a responsibility to help the residents of the town. I think people kind of lose sight of that at times, but it's more than just pushing paper there. There's a lot of that too. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of work back there. And so
I think that really is important because, you know, when you have someone tell, this has nothing to do with Bristol, but just real quick, you know, somebody, I helped her get her COVID shot set up at the state, and she didn't have a computer. And she was telling me about this gentleman that was in front of her to set up the second shot. And they were telling them to go on their smartphones. My friend didn't have it, neither did this man. And she couldn't understand. She said the guy was older, you know, and he was kind of confused. And they didn't help him, and kept saying like, why wouldn't they help him? Because naturally in anything I do at work, that's what I would do.
Right.
You know, in my job, if I was talking to somebody as a constituent, I would try to figure out like the best solution and how long would it have taken them to go and put that in the computer for the guy. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't have taken them a long time. And so, I mean, that is really an important aspect of what you're doing in any town hall and in any government agency, not in a town hall, any government agency. Is to pay attention and help people out. I have seen a lot of people that don't do that in different places, including at, you know, some state offices that I've been in. And, you know, Bristol does have a reputation for that kind of service. And I think it's, you know, fair enough that it, just because it's not tons and tons, it's not tons of money, you know, and I'm said earlier the other night, I think, or I think I said it. I mean, I would like to see this tax rate in the 30s,
Right.
you know, somewhere, you know, I think 41's a little high, but to me, this is a little bit of penny wise and pound foolishness, a little bit on that borders a little bit on that.
So it sounds like we've kind of covered all of it.
We talked about this.
I'll say that you made some great points. I think that, and you didn't say this, but those kind of customer services is not exclusive to the clerk's department. It is everyone,
Right. Mhm.
and not exclusive to town hall. It is all of our departments, and everyone's responsibility is to help the public. And we always have, and we are doing it at this moment, and we're never going to stop. And if we go down a direction that we do, then this council will take action to make sure that those things are fixed immediately. So I would say that I still believe that I was clear on where I don't want to restate, so I think we've covered it. I want to support you and see you successful and see your employees successful also, because with that success comes everyone else's success. But I do believe that I'd like to see more data, to use something that you've said a lot of times, Tim, could show me where the changes are, show me the changes that you've made, and then I'll absolutely consider it. So it's not a no from me, it's just I don't want to do this right now, but but I've heard everybody's point. I think we've all heard each other's point. So what I would ask for is we can take, because we only have a couple of questions here, we have one more that's even. So what's this council? I want to get a motion to. We'll go to the full-time position, which would be, Julie, double check, 45,998, is that right? Okay, so there's a motion.
22,994, it's exactly half.
So, and that motion is to take a part-time position in the clerk's office. Is there a second? Discussion. Just making sure.
No, I would love to support the full-time position, but I concur with the chair that at this point in time, I'd much rather give some time and see how it plays out and be there on the sideline to support as needed.
Yeah.
You know.
Anything else? Okay, hearing no, so all in favor?
Aye.
So in favor is 3, against? All right, so 3-2, so the motion passes. Okay, so we'll make those adjustments in the budget. And then, as far as we had 2 more questions. One of them we did not hear back from the library in regards to those. So unless there's objection to the council, I'd like to move past that, since they didn't come back. Julie?
I just have a quick question on how to put this in the budget so everybody's comfortable.
Please.
Should I be, right now it says Ed Carusi at, with that higher amount, should it be new employee and then at the higher amount and then we zero out Ed? Do I put new employee with the 22,994 and leave Ed with the 22,994?
It would seem like this is part-time positions currently Ed. Maybe it's.
So I zero that out.
I am not suggesting this is what the process should be, but only that we use Ed as that.
So I could put
All
in
due respect, Ed,
Carusi
we'll use you as a
/ new
placeholder for
employee
that.
and that range for.
Human resources.
And then the process goes through its normal steps.
Take the benefits out of the part-time human resource. So the medical goes with the clerk's office.
But we don't know, we do need medical either way.
If it's full-time in the clerk, then
You only need one medical plan.
Yes.
Actually, no, because depending, doesn't take it.
Well, either way, we'll be getting a new full-time employee, whether it's him with a medical plan or a new full-time employee. You typically assume a family plan. Do we know if, he doesn't, he already said he'd be gone. Is he immediate?
So why don't we start? All we want to do at this moment is, and anyone stop me if you disagree, is just placehold that dollar figure, because I know there's other processes of who can go and the union guidelines, such and so forth. Are we achieving the goal that you need to by calling Ed the full-time employee for the moment? Is there any bad Bad
I
reason to
just
do
wanted
that?
to make sure that everybody understood that's how it will show when the budget's, so it's fine.
So there's no
You're
negative
comfortable with
to that?
in your budget.
So, please, just for clarity, because I want to make
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. So at this point, and let's say Ed does not take the position, he's not gonna give up his medical.
Right, we
his
don't really
benefits.
want to take it out of
So-
welfare, we need to just add it to.
So you actually gonna end up with an additional medical coverage.
Which
plus
was
the plus the salary. So we're talking about an additional 50,000 plus.
So it's not, oh, I'm sorry, we don't know what it's going to be.
It's actually over 50.
It's, yeah, so because of process as it currently is, and there's nothing wrong with the process, it just is an unanswered question. We can't speak to what it's going to be until it shakes out at the end. So we approved 25. We should be approving a full-time employee because that could mean at least 50,000, depending if it's a family plan.
Plus,
right?
Plus. Yes.
But you also are actually approving a part-time. You already have, because of the reality of funding, I mean, I totally understand where you're going. In a way, in that department have medical, benefits, I'm saying benefits, because more than medical.
Yeah.
And a person, so you have like half and half, but you have half medical, half person.
Currently.
Currently, yeah.
But the change will be full-time.
Right.
And so this does get a little bit
Easiest
confusing.
way
So
to-
go ahead, Julie, you do it.
I think the easiest way to approve this would be to approve the full-time position, which goes back to Melissa's request, the town clerk's request, which is included the active medical, the active dental, the payroll taxes, and the defined contribution, state pension. So it restores back to her initial ask. All of those lines will be. So that's, I think, how the council would vote on that. And I'm not sure if you need to, you don't vote until the provisional budget, or you just make it a great, you would agree on
Honestly,
something
we
now
just,
and
so,
then
yeah,
you
right,
vote
this is
at the
gonna go.
provisional budget.
But I'm not trying to change anybody's point, but it's really, I think it's a really important point here, that it's not necessarily 25, it could be a lot more than $25,000.
Well,
and if you're okay with that, it's okay. Again, we voted on it. I'm not asking for another vote, but we should be clear on it. I said 45,990. So I think I should say it's a full-time position, potentially more. So please.
Question. All right, so let me know if I got this one wrong, but Pantry is a part-time position in both.
In two departments, agreed.
If he was full-time, then we're gonna be hiring services departments, and that person doesn't have a medical, right? So the medical just goes over there, but if somebody with seniority leapfrogs at Cruise that position, and all of a sudden we have a
But then that
loss.
Carusi could go to swap places.
It
with
just
that.
swaps, it swaps
So
places.
if somebody from my department decided they wanted to go to that position, then he would be bumped and he would come over to. So that's how that works.
If he wishes. So no, kind of, if he wishes to do that.
So what
So
if you
just
want-
for clarity, is Ed in town world, is he a full-time employee with his, and his
Yes.
dollars are split between two
Yeah.
departments? So Ed would continue to be a full-time
Correct.
employee?
Yes.
Yeah, so honestly, we have outcomes that we've all talked about. We don't know what they're actually going to be, but there are potential greater than 25,000, potentially just 25,000 plus.
The amount, if we just restore Melissa's request, would be 44,780.
Okay, all right. I think are we okay at the moment? I know we've kind of did this one every side. All right, so
I'm moving forward then with that. Just want to be clear.
you are moving forward with that change. Is there any objection from the council? All right, the last question then was brought up about the Friends of Linden Place. I want to see if I can get right to the end. I heard dual agreement for $600 for them.
Is there anybody else?
So do I hear 7? So can I take that as a motion? Is there and there's a second? Is there a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll put that into the provision. Anything else before we part ways this evening?
He asked me for a follow-up on, I don't know if you're still interested, but on the.
Always
phone-
interested, go ahead.
On the phone tree.
Yeah.
So we just cut down 600. And so I just wanted to report that I called today, listened, it took, it was actually very succinct. There was some COVID information, town hall hours, it's dialed by extension or name, but that was like 45 seconds to get to a list. And I felt like it was pretty quick. It was like 10 seconds between each thing. So I think that that maybe the improvements would have solved whatever issue we were having with that. But I invite anybody else to call in and see how they felt about it. And we've gotten maybe 15 calls in the last few days, but I think they're pretty quick. I don't feel like our department needs that.
I think this council has a lot of faith and confidence in the administrator to make those adjustments if you deem them to be necessary. The current way it's going to change when COVID changes, and it's less prevalent. COVID's not going away, but it will be less prevalent. Potentially our announcements. If it requires council action in the future, maybe we all just use our own due diligence and call every once in a while and see if it feels logical and normal, and put your 85-year-old hat on. So can I get to where I want to? Yeah. I just noticed that Chris is looking at us with his laptop, and that means our cameras went down again. So I want to take a moment to say to all of you, thank you for the efforts, the energies that you put in. Chris, you particularly, I'd like to take a moment. Thank you, and thank goodness you brought your laptop because you could see us. So the hiccups that we're seeing with the Zoom room, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this on budget week was to work some of these out, right? So we'll continue to do that. You can see this is temporary setup. Chris has worked very, very, very hard with our vendor that got us all of this, and continue to. So we'll get this straightened out. This is a work in progress for this close. Most importantly, thank you all for your efforts and your energies. Treasurer, administrator, for the efforts that got us here, and to all of you. Honestly, I have a lot of respect, and I appreciate the candor that we had, and then to walk away disagreeing on something, still having. I think other maybe state agencies and federal agencies could benefit from such.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for being serious. I think we could all use a little more pickleball in our lives.
There it is. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My pleasure. Thank you. My pleasure. Motion to adjourn? I didn't make it, so you made it. So Tim made it, Tony seconded it. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
It was a lot of fun being back here in person.